So thank you very much for attending this masterclass. I know that there's several masterclasses that are taking place, obviously a lot of opportunities, so thank you for taking the 45 or 1 hour to attend this masterclass. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Etienne Nietlem. I'm an associated professor at the University of Angers called École Supérieure des Agricultures. This masterclass is obviously focused on the PGI white wines of the Loire, and we will talk about the wines from the Auvergne until the wines until the Atlantic Ocean on the west coast of France. It's a masterclass organized and supported by the interprofessional body of the Loire wines, Inter-Loire, in partnership with the PGI wines of the Loire Valley. So for the presentation, I felt that while we taste, it's obviously interesting to provide content. And I would like to focus on three different topics that I would like to present. Firstly, what are PGI wines? Just to introduce the wines and to explain the difference with appellation wines that we all know in Europe. What are the attributes of Loire wines and why it's an opportunity? And then concluding on some comments in the same context of why it is an opportunity. So we will be tasting 6 wines that we selected for you from the 2022 vintage. That you can appreciate, and hopefully that as I'm trying to explain the wines, the proof will be in the wine and that you can see the quality and authenticity of the white wines coming from the Loire Valley under the PGA label. So quickly, just to contextualize, PGI wines are recognized European geographical indication, so it's a recognized European scheme. It obviously emphasizes the relationship between the region and the name of the product, where we talk about the link or the relationship that exists between the quality or the sensory quality and the attributes of that geographical setting. It's, as a European label, it obviously guarantees traceability, as we understand the origin, the variety, and the producer, and it also helps the producers definitely to promote their wine as having a label and a well-defined appellation scheme that gives them an identity in the market. So PGI wines are obviously exposed to strict regulations, production regulations. They have to be under the assignment of an independent organization that will verify if everything is well conducted. And just to give you some examples from a European perspective, so at least one stage of the production has to be in the defined area. When we state the grape variety on the bottle, 85% of the variety has to be from that named variety. And then lastly, we also have tasting commissions that allow us to guarantee the quality of the wine. So they will allow the consumer also to have trust that the wine is free of any faults, and that there's a tasting commission that validates the quality of the wine. So PGI wines, maybe compared to previous thoughts, are definitely not below appellation wines. They're at the same level. They are recognized as official geographical indications. And it's definitely not a lower quality level compared to appellation wines. And today, if we think about how producers are using this additional label, it gives them the opportunity to have something that is not bounded by the specific style of the appellation. They can use this as a way of enlarging their portfolio, and definitely it offers creativity, room for innovation, and allowing producers to play around with different varieties, different styles. That is definitely something that the PGI wine scheme offers them today in the field of sustainability, climate change impacts, and the market trends, and how they can quickly adapt to those trends. So PGI wines are one of the 6 regional schemes that are a part of France. So the PGI Loire wines are one of those regional labels. And today, the question is why the PGI wines of the Loire, and specifically the white wine. So again, I hope that there will be proof in the glass, and that you will also see the quality and authenticity of these wines that present a large diversity of style varieties that you can appreciate. So one of the first attributes of the Loire will definitely be scale. If we think about how extended this region is, we're crossing 14 departments, as you can see on the left corner. It's the largest wine region in France in terms of geographical scope. We're crossing 14 departments from the Puy-de-Dôme department in Auvergne until the Loire-Atlantique department on the Atlantic coast on the western part of France. So it's definitely a very large region. And we try to display it a little bit on the tasting mat that you can have in front of you. And therefore, not to take too much time, let's taste the first wine, Manuel. So the first one that we will be tasting is a 100% Sauvignon Blanc, produced in the Pays Nantais region. We have here sandy soil, young vineyards, 15 years in age. I don't have the exact alcohol content, but we're normally situated between 12 and 12.5. And this is a wine, and I give you the direct seller price, but a wine that was made with mechanical harvesting, fermented under controlled temperature conditions, in stainless steel tank, no malolactic fermentation, and then was aged on the lees for about 5 months until bottling. So the exact alcohol content will be 12%. So Sauvignon Blanc, as I will show you later, it's the most used white varietal for the PGI wines. It's 46% of the total volume of production. So an important variety. Obviously in Pays Nantais, it's not part of the appellation scheme, so it does offer the producers that way of enlarging their portfolio, producing an excellent Sauvignon Blanc in the region of Pays Nantais that I will describe afterwards. We definitely have the intensity, the aromatic potential of a Sauvignon, a wine that is clear, crisp. I put the aromas as they are presented by the producer, so definitely feel free also to comment on what you feel sensorially on the nose, in the palate. Merci beaucoup. Vous pouvez même amener le deuxième vin, le deuxième. Yeah, we have the characteristics of the variety here. Great intensity, definitely acidity, giving it a medium body, bright acidity, full complexity in terms of different aromas, primary aromas that are reflective of the variety, but also of the place that I will explain, because here we are in an oceanic climate on the sandy soils of Pays Nantais. They're already serving the third one that it allows us to go a little bit quicker. But so if we talk about scale, obviously scales brings us to the term diversity. And one of the first things that the Loire Valley offers is a diversity in terms of subsoils that we can find. It's one of our greatest attributes. We don't have the most complex topography, but we have very variable soils from the Pays Nantais until Auvergne. So with diversity in terms of subsoils coming from different geological formations, obviously it gives us different styles, expressions of the same variety on different soil conditions, and this offers a great diversity in terms of the offer that you can have within the region. So basically, as we move from the west to the eastern part, we move from Pays Nantais, that is part of the more older bedrock, what we call the Massif Armoricain, which is an old bedrock formation where most of the soils will be granite, schist, some will even be more volcanic driven, and this will give soils of different depths, different texture. And as we move until the region of Anjou, this type of rock formation continue. We have a little bit more of sandstone also as a bedrock, but definitely there's a transition between the town of Angers and as we move eastern to the town of Saumur and the Touraine region that you have on your mat. But we transition from this older bedrock, metamorphic volcanic soils to something that's more sedimentary, so limestone, but we also have silicious clay. We have a lot of sand around the vineyards that are close to the river, alluvial compositions that were brought by the river, the Loire, and its different tributaries. And then as we move towards the Auvergne region, we have the quality of the volcanic activity that took place, giving a much more complex topography, hills, expositions. So we find the volcanic soil, but we also find sedimentary rock like limestone again. So very diverse macro geological compositions, and that brings a lot of diversity in terms of the subsoils we can find. And just to show you how this varies, so if we consider that Chenin Blanc is a dominant variety for the middle part of the Loire Valley, Anjou, Saumur, and Touraine, we can have easily these different types of soil. If we take the schist soils of Anjou, it's shallow, sandy, a lot of coarse elements. We have low water holding retention. So vines normally have a short vegetative cycle. The onset of ripening is quite early, and this provides definitely more longer periods for ripening. Lower vigor exposes the bunches to more sunshine, more direct temperatures, and we have much more ripe fruit normally from Chenin coming from this type of soil. If we compare it to Touraine or to Saumur, we have the deep limestone soils. They have more a clay texture, they have a greater water holding capacity, and as you can see, a much greater depth, providing much more vegetative growth for the plant, a little bit more shading for the bunches, and provide a much more fresh style of Chenin Blanc compared to maybe the Anjou, that it's much more structured, much more full-bodied, and definitely allow us to have vocabulary and to maybe easily explain also the differences we can have for Chenin Blanc around the region. So the second wine that you were served will be number 3. It's on the red part of your mat. This will be 100% Chenin Blanc again. So all the wines we will show you will be 100%, as most of the wines coming from the Loire Valley, from the PGI label, are 100% varietals. I think the focus here is to favor the variety, to explain the diversity of varieties we have, but also a way of showing the site. So this will be a Chenin from on schist soils in Anjou. As I explained to you, will be completely different from the Chenin coming from the eastern part of the Loire Valley. So a wine again with a rather low level of alcohol, 12.5, coming from 2 different vineyards with an average age of 30 years. Farming practices are certified organic since 2015, and here we will find a wine that was harvested by hand, looking at slow pressing, natural fermentation, so spontaneous fermentation under again controlled conditions, and the wine will stay for about 2 months on the lees to give it a little bit more roundness, to provide the biological stability, and then bottling it. We will find different complex primary aromas running from what we call the citrus green fruit characteristics to something much more ripened, more pear, more golden apple. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will give time at the end, but you can also ask me any question that was unclear or something that you would like me to comment on during the presentation. Yeah, so ripe fruits, we have this green apple, citrus, lime character, but definitely ripe fruit. Yeah, stone fruit, pear, golden apple. And similar to the Sauvignon Blanc, a wine that's very well structured, medium-bodied, acidity that is extremely important, pronounced, and giving this wine, in a very warm vintage, great freshness and definitely potential even for keeping it a little bit. The intensity in the mouthfeel at the end is also strongly driven by this ripe fruit. So talking about diversity, obviously, soils are very important. They provide us, or for the growers in that sense, a mosaic of different climates that they can play with, that they can express. And as I told you, the PGIs give them this more innovative creativity. So a way for them also to use that to display their way of making wine and how they want to reveal place. But we have climate variability. We have a dominant oceanic climate that is maybe similar to Bordeaux or Champagne, this oceanic climate that will give us regular rainfall throughout the year. It will provide us a lot of sunshine hours, especially on the western part in the region of Pays, Nantais and Anjou. And as we move towards the eastern part, towards Touraine, Auvergne, definitely we have more continental influence. It still is oceanic, but less and less. We can maybe mention it as a semi-continental climate. Where conditions become a little bit more extreme, we have maybe more spring frosts, more drought, a little bit more cloudiness, a little bit more rainfall during the summer, but providing much more warm conditions. And the wine that we will be tasting will be a Chardonnay from that area, and therefore definitely a Chardonnay that expresses that warmer conditions that we have in the Touraine area. But we have the Loire, which is extremely important. And we talk about a region that is a northern latitude, a region that has a lot of climate hazards, climate extremes because of the northern position. But we have the Loire and a lot of different attributes that you can visualize on this map. That gives us a lot of moderating conditions. It allows us to offset the extremes during the spring or during the summer, and it provides a little bit more consistency between the winter and between the summer. So the third wine that you will be tasting will be a Chardonnay coming from the Touraine area. This will again be 100% Chardonnay, so we're moving on from Sauvignon, Chenin, which are among the main varieties planted, to Chardonnay. This is a Chardonnay from a company that is present in Wine Paris. If you want to visit them, they're in Hall 3, D159. They've obviously a range of different wines that you can explore and taste. This is 100% Chardonnay planted on that limestone soils that I just showed you. Deep soils, high water holding retention, more vegetative growth, but definitely the summers being a little bit warmer compared to the western part, which is much more oceanic. These are vineyards that are planted between the 1980s and 2013. They certified the environmental label HVE. We have mechanical harvest, and then they separated the juice. 50% had some maceration and slow pressing. 50% had some hot maceration to extract even more of the flavor, and then alcohol fermentation once both have completed the maceration period in stainless steel tank, and then no malolactic fermentation to preserve the acidity. 2022 again was a very, very warm vintage, and I will show it to you, with aging about 5 to 6 months on the lees. This wine will have generous fruity nose with stone and exotic fruit. With again an alcohol content of 12%. Merci beaucoup. Yeah, so despite the deep soils, we definitely can feel here the warmer climate of Touraine in a very warm vintage, more ripe, more exotic fruit here, a one that's much more full-bodied compared to the first two that we've tasted, but still represent great freshness, acidity, and definitely a lot of intensity regarding the primary aromas coming from the variety and the place where the grapes are grown. In the selection, we also try to vary the pricing ranges to show you also the scope of what the PGI wines of the Loire offer in terms of also a market segmentation and consumer place. So when we talk about diversity, and obviously a playground for wine growers to use, diversity in terms of soil, diversity in terms of climate, And again, the PGI label giving that room for innovation, creativity. Obviously, wine growers want to use different varieties. So we have 3 varieties that dominate the volume. We have Sauvignon Blanc, as I mentioned to you, which will be 46% of the total white wine production. I will show the slide afterwards, but white wines represent 65% of the total volume of the PGI wines. So Sauvignon Blanc is an important variety. And definitely something that we display well in the Loire Valley. We also have Chardonnay, 30% of the total white wine production. And then we start getting varieties that are endemic to the region. So Chenin Blanc obviously is a variety that is signature to many of our Anjou, Saumur, Touraine wines. But we have actually 31 varieties that are included today in the Code of Conduct, the regulations, what we call the Cahier des Charges, allowing the producers to use that 31 varieties, to plant them, and to make wines, as I show you, that are often monovarietal. 90% of the wines are 100% of the variety indicated on the bottle. So definitely giving us an advantage. We're very clear, traceable on the origin, but also the variety that is planted, grown, and produced in the bottle. And today with the question of agroecological transition, then the varieties that are currently created with resistant genes, what we call hybrid varieties or resistant varieties for the main diseases, powdery or downy mildew. The appellation is already including these new hybrid varieties to allow the growers also to plant them and definitely contribute to the agroecological transition, lowering the number of treatments, which is extremely important in an oceanic climate. We have a high disease pressure, we can have rainfall throughout the year, so we can have a lot of passages, a lot of compact on the soil, and planting hybrid varieties are definitely the solution for us, not in terms of just adapting to climate change, but also being pioneers of how we mitigate our effects to climate change. So we have a lot of endemic varieties, and the objective now with the second or the 2 next wines. Manuel, vous pouvez servir numéro 4 et numéro 5. So we're going to serve you 2 wines, 100% Gros Le Gris and 100% Très Salier. I will first present to you the Gros Le Gris. So they are part of the 17% of white wine production that are from the 30 or the other varieties, and often they are endemic, so they are native to the region. I think today, if we think about identity, varieties that are less known but very well adapted to current climate challenges and climate conditions, and the fact that we have a market and definitely a generation looking for new things, this offers a lot of attractiveness, a lot of fun, and definitely for the growers, it's a way of also talking about their heritage and the varieties that they have been protecting, conserving in the region, and they are bringing back today either through massal selection or with specific clonal selection programs with different research institutions. So Gros Le Gris, which is produced in the Pays Nantais region, this will be a grey mutation of the historical variety Gros Le Noir, which is endemic to the region. So this mutation took place at a certain time. The mutation took place in the skin and gave the bunches a more grey color, and we use this today to produce the white wine, similar to Pinot Gris in Alsace, etc. So this is a wine that was coming from vineyards that are 20 to 25 years old. Practices are certified Terra Vitis, and again the environmental label HVE. Mechanical harvest, and then fermentation at low temperatures to preserve the primary aromas of the variety and the wine. And then it spent a lot of time on the lees with regular stirrings to give it a little bit more structure, more lactic aromas, and definitely more secondary aromas in the mouthfeel as part of the fermentation process. Again, the alcohol percentage is 11%. They don't do any direct sales, but they have a stand again at Wine Paris in Hall 3, part of the Loire section, under CO71 that you can visit. You can look at all their ranges that they produce. And this wine will be dominating. Again, this is the aromas that we saw on the website, but we definitely can taste it together and see what you appreciate. So Gros Le Gris, grey mutation of the Gros Le Noir, which is an endemic variety or a native variety to the Loire Valley. This will be the second wine on your tasting mat. Now, in terms of intensity, we definitely pronounced. A lot of primary aromas on the nose. Very citrus driven, green fruit, lime. A little bit more phenolic ripeness. This wine has a little bit more structure, a little bit more astringency. But very unique and something that is specifically only grown and produced in the Loire Valley. Can't hear me? You can't hear me? See? Ah, okay. Okay, and then the second last wine, so Très Salier, which is rather known as Sassy in France in the official catalogue of varieties that can be grown and produced in France. So this will be a crossing that took naturally place in the environment, like Cabernet Sauvignon is from Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Franc. Très Salier, it's from that same period where a lot of natural crossing took place. The two parents has been identified as Pinot and Gouais Blanc. And it's a native variety to this department of Allier, which is in the Auvergne region. Again, very few numbers of vineyards will be planted with Très Salier, but a very interesting variety. Has a great potential in terms of climate change adaptation, a lot of acidity, a lot of attributes that makes it extremely suitable for the current challenges we're facing. So we felt it was important, not to show just the Gros Gris. We have also obviously other varieties that are native to the region, but for a white varietal, this is extremely interesting. Très Salier, also called Sassy. This one is planted on a clay limestone, so the sedimentary rock formation which we can find also in the Auvergne region. These vineyards are quite young still. Farming practices are organic. They're currently also being certified biodynamically. Again, showing you the scope of different producers, different styles, different entry points from a price perspective. Winemaking, so grapes are harvested by hand, whole bunch pressed, natural fermentation or spontaneous fermentation took place in stainless steel tanks, and then aging on the lees for about 8 months, giving, again, looking for that lactic perspective in the mouthful, giving it more structure, and allowing the wine to have this time of settling and giving it more complexity. So even a little bit more intense compared to the Gros Gris. This intensity is quite pronounced. We even have the secondary aromas on the nose. Much fuller. And as you can feel, a great acidity. Again, this is produced in a very warm vintage. The length of the aromas are very long, and the acidity gives it a very well structured, balanced wine. Yeah, so obviously I think my discussion came to this point. So with diversity comes, the offer of choice. Choice in terms of stylistic variation. We have this free approach to winemaking, allowing the growers to express themselves and offering wines that are unique and quality wines, and definitely known for their affordability. So just some key numbers. We have 1,400 grape or wine growers in the PGI wine scheme, from Auvergne to the west coast of the Atlantic Ocean. There's 7 cooperatives and 65 merchants or négociants. And as I told you, the dominant volume production will be for white wine, 65%, and then we have almost a spread between the rosé and the red wines, which will be 17 and 16%. And then, we're talking about quality control. As a recognized European geographical indication scheme, yields are controlled. They are maximized, or they are authorized until the limit of 90 hectoliters per hectare, even if some producers will manage the vineyard with much lower yields, trying to express the variety in the site. And then obviously we also have tasting commissions that will take place to guarantee quality and definitely give trust to the consumer. And then, just to finish maybe with one of the final attributes, I think there's today a question of identity, image. We have a very competitive global market, a lot of different choices and offers that are available, but the Loire Valley has a strong identity. We have an outstanding landscape as we follow the Loire River, and actually the PGI label follows the Loire River from its origin until the Atlantic Ocean, to be exactly 1,006 kilometers. And the vineyards are part of this outstanding landscape that is also protected by UNESCO. We have castles and towns, so it also is a thing that consumers can relate to, and definitely it allows us to have an identity that is established and well recognized by the consumer. So talking about unique landscapes, we will taste the final one, which will be a Chardonnay, 100%. From the same winery that made the Très Salier, so I didn't have the stand number here, but you can look it up in the previous slide. So this will be 100% Chardonnay, which will give you the comparison with the Chardonnay we already tasted on a similar soil, but now in a very different climate. This is a single vineyard planted towards the end of the 80s. Farming practice again are certified organic, and they're currently working on their biodynamic certification. We have hand harvest, direct press, spontaneous fermentation, the dernière s'il vous plaît, direct press, and then natural fermentation in a rather larger barrel, 500 liters, and then aging for 12 months on the lees. The alcohol will be a little bit higher because the Auvergne is even more continental, much warmer summers, and definitely leading to much riper fruit and exposing the bunches to that warm temperatures. And then this wine will have, again, the ripe fruit, freshness, and definitely a great complexity. So we're looking at a style that have definitely the secondary aromas, much more oak presence, fermentation in the barrel, aging in the barrel for 12 months on the lees, but no lees stirring. They didn't look for the batonnage effect and giving it even more roundness, more lactic aromas, but profiting from that time in the barrel. So extremely ripe fruit, secondary aromas dominated by these hints of oak. But hopefully from wine number one, you have felt the complexity, the intensity, the structure of the wines, and seeing that there's no, these wines were made with a perspective of making quality wine, expressive of the variety, expressive of the site, with different degrees of intensity and complexity. Yeah, so maybe just to conclude, I think I wanted to conclude on two things. I think there's an opportunity today for these wines. We're talking about, yeah, if I can say it like that, an opportunity for the Loire and an opportunity for the PGI white wines of the Loire Valley. If we look at the statistics of wine consumption, and especially the wine consumption since the beginning of the century, we have to understand we're in the backdrop of a market that it doesn't see any growth. If you think about red wine consumption, and if you look at white wine consumption with the numbers that the OIV has published, we can see that this is a significant increase of 10%. So there's definitely a growing market and a growing rise among consumers for white wines, and the Loire Valley offers this diversity and definitely wines that are complex, intense. And then secondly, we specifically wanted you to taste the 2022 vintage because again, if we think about climate change, we think about the challenges, there's also an opportunity here. We're thinking about a region that are maybe seeing more the opportunities. So this is a graph showing you the rise in annual temperatures for Angers, which will be a reference to the Loire Valley. We see also the rise in annual temperatures for Bordeaux. And what we can see here is that not only is 2022 the warmest vintage on record, and the ones that you have tasted, remember the alcohol content was between 11 and 13% in a very warm vintage. Great, balanced acidity. So despite the warm temperatures, and maybe if 2022 is what is expected to become more and more frequent, we can see that the Loire Valley wines has the resilience to make quality wine. It's obviously thanks to the soils, the climate, but also the winemakers behind it. But you can see that today we have the same historical climate as Bordeaux, and it definitely offers us to make wines that are much more complex, much more ripe. For the red wines, much more phenolic ripe. For the white wines, maybe expressing more the aromatic potential of the variety. So this is an opportunity in terms of the rising consumption of white wines, but also in the context of global warming, how 2022 behaved and conducted, and how this, in the context of climate change, shows us of the things that is to come, and that the Loire Valley has the resilience to produce excellent quality wines. Yeah, so thank you very much for your time.